Go get them. Thanks. So good to be with you today. I guess all the presidential candidates are in New Hampshire right now, so you're stuck with the guerrilla journalist. And I would like to make an announcement here in Pennsylvania that I'm running for president. I'm just kidding. I would never run for office. I believe what we do at Project Veritas is maybe more effective than being in office. So, as usual, I have a presentation to show you today, if we could get it on the screen. I am a guerrilla journalist, as I said. I also consider myself somewhat of a community organizer. I don't organize people to register to vote. I organize people with courage, with, to borrow a phrase, audacity, to go out and to expose creatively what's happening inside government and other institutions. Just a few weeks ago, for example, we recruited a student who's a 4.0 GPA student at her college in Florida. And to demonstrate the anti-Americanism extremism of her faculty, she attempted to start a pro-ISIS club, a club on campus sympathetic to ISIS, and the university said, yeah, let's do it. Let's just change the name so no one knows where we're sending the money to. She was suspended by the university for doing this, but she doesn't care. She's more committed to the principles than to her own college degree. So these are the types of people that we recruit, train, and identify as part of Project Veritas. Now, we don't play defense at Project Veritas, and today I'm going to walk you through a couple of our stories. Some of you have seen some of these, some of you have not seen some of these. We play offense. We don't react to what's going on. We break news. Cheryl Atkinson spoke to you yesterday. Cheryl Atkinson also breaks news. We don't necessarily break news on CBS. We break news wherever we can, and it goes viral and it forces the mainstream media to cover us. And to quote my philosophy is, ironically enough, I gave this interview with Playboy magazine. I don't think that we need to tell people what to believe. I think we need to show people what is true, and they will then know what to believe. They will know what decisions to make for their country. So, just as by way of introduction, many of you have heard about this story. It continues to be people's favorite story about Project Veritas. When I was in college, I went to Rutgers University in New Jersey, where I'm from. I decided to do an experiment. The Achilles heel of the left, if you will. How crazy are these people? How far does their political correctness go? At best, they're stupid. At worst, there's something more sinister going on. So I decided, would it be possible to ban Lucky Charms breakfast cereal on the grounds it's racist against Irish people? Myself being an not African-American, Freudian slip there. Myself being an Irish-American, 6-foot-tall individual, I do not appear like the Irish leprechaun on the front cover of the cereal box. So here's a little clip, hopefully the sound works, of me banning Lucky Charms at Rutgers University.
As a student at Rutgers, he became fed up with political correctness, especially about race. So on St. Patrick's Day 2004, he met with an administrator to demand they stop serving Lucky Charms cereal with its Irish leprechaun.
As you can see, we're not all short. I mean, we have our differences of height.
Yeah, so they banned Lucky Charms. And then I realized, okay, maybe there's something to this. Maybe I can take this political technology, this investigative journalism, a combination of Borat meets 60 Minutes.
As a student at
and maybe I can use it to expose things, to show people what's going on in our country, to show people the loopholes, the hypocrisy, the fraud. And one of the best ways we've done this is, and we talk about the presidential elections coming up, is on the issue of voter integrity. So, for example, you have our Attorney General, our previous Attorney General, Eric Holder, who thinks that it is racist to show a driver's license when you go vote. And he himself has said time and time again that photo ID is a non-starter. So we decided to put that to the test. What if we went into the place where Eric Holder himself casts his own ballot to vote in the District of Columbia in Washington, D.C., and Nebraska Avenue in the District of Columbia, where he lives? What if we went up to his poll location, and because there's no requirement to show an ID, would they mistake me for Eric Holder? And after all, I mean, they can't tell me I don't look like him, can they? How far? So that's exactly what we did. I recruited a brave young journalist who was 23 years old. He grew a beard, looks nothing like a 61-year-old African-American attorney general. And we went into his poll location, and you'd be amazed at what happened, or maybe you wouldn't be amazed because some of you have seen the story.
The Attorney General of the United States, as you know, is a 62-year-old black man named Eric Holder.
But last week, a bearded 23-year-old white man went to Holder's voting precinct here in Northwest D.C. and was offered Holder's D.C. primary ballot to vote in that election.
You have an Eric Holder?
The actor confirms the address.
Please sign me there.
I actually forgot my ID.
You don't need it, sorry.
I left it in the car.
As long as you're in here, you're on our list, and that's who you say you are. You're okay.
I would feel more comfortable if I just had my ID. Is it all right if I go get it?
Sure, go ahead.
I'll be back faster than you can say furious.
We're not going.
I'll be back faster than you can say furious. We played with some different lines, and we came up with that one. But it wasn't the poll workers' fault. It was the system's fault. And by the way, we've gotten dozens and dozens of government workers fired over the years. But it's usually not their fault. They're just doing what they're supposed to be doing. It's the system's fault. And with the case of Acorn, they fired so many workers until they finally just defunded the whole program because they realized something needs to change. So video journalism is by far the most powerful way to inform people, to expose hypocrisy, to change things. This is a great moment. So after this happened, the Attorney General was called to testify. And he was asked, how on earth could your ballot be offered to James O'Keefe's reporter?
About your reaction when you saw the video of the young man who claimed your ballot here some months ago.
You know, I mean, it's an attempt to show something, I suppose, but I think what I drew from that video was that that guy was very careful not to say he was Eric Holder, not to actually get a ballot.
Now, notice it's a total deflection, but he did call me careful. So Eric Holder thinks I have good lawyers. Eric Holder thinks I'm safe. I get a lot of questions. Do you have good attorneys? Do you have good counsel? And apparently the Attorney General of the United States thinks I do. And that would actually go on to help me. This is a funny side story most people don't know about. We did this sting in New Hampshire. We'll get to this in a second. We did this sting in New Hampshire. We did it in North Carolina. We did it in Minnesota, amongst other places. And we get offered these ballots in the names of dead people, in the names of celebrities. So I do this in New Hampshire, big story in New Hampshire, front page of the Union Leader. The governor says I should be arrested. And the Attorney General of New Hampshire, it's actually the assistant or the associate Attorney General, guy by the name of Richard Head, sends me a letter subpoena. The guy's name is actually Richard Head. And his name, he actually signs it Richard W. Head, thinking that's going to disguise the actual name of him. I mean, now Eric Holder sent 7 FBI agents to New Hampshire trying to find my colleague who did this sting in the middle of the night, knocked on the doors, almost served a criminal grand jury subpoena. So Eric Holder was working with Dickhead. I mean, it's almost like, if I wrote a book called Breakthrough, and it really is like a John Grisham novel. I can't make this stuff up. Eric Holder working with Richard Head, and there's actually a chapter in my book called The Rise of Richard Head. That's me confronting Richard Head. But in all seriousness, they have tried to indict, they have tried to subpoena, but they have failed because we keep producing quality journalism. And I think that what we do is a lesson sometimes to politicians. Don't be afraid of the media. In fact, break compelling stories that force the media to cover us. This is a case of Virginia, where Congressman Moran's son and field director was caught on tape telling us to vote multiple times for President Obama, to forge ballots, to forge utility bills so that we can impersonate other voters.
So it's going to be with the new voter ID laws as well, but faking that utility bill would be easy enough. So like utility bills or something like that. Because he'll need bills, so he'll need something with the name and their address on it.
So this guy's given us advice on how to use Microsoft Word to forge utility statements so that we can impersonate voters at the poll locations. And the amount of earned media coverage from this sting was unbelievable. Maybe we didn't get on NBC News. Maybe we didn't get on national CBS News. But every local TV affiliate in D.C. and hundreds more around the country covered this story.
Congressman Jim Moran's son, Patrick, has resigned from his father's campaign after he was caught on camera talking to someone about how to commit voter fraud.
A conservative group, Project Veritas.
Undercover video from the group Project Veritas.
The covert video was captured by the conservative group Project Veritas.
A conservative group called Project Veritas.
An organization called Project Veritas.
Congresswoman, it was released by something called Project Veritas, which is a conservative group that's headed by James O'Keefe. So what do you think of that videotape?
I mean, it's just indefensible, and he was right to resign.
My only regret is I didn't have 12 of these. I mean, how often do you have Soledad O'Brien cross-examining Debbie Wasserman Schultz about a piece of video showing someone committing fraud? We need 100 of these. We need thousands of these. And I think that if we did that, all of our other problems, most of them, would fade away. Now, just how afraid are they of not stopping the fraud, but stopping the whistleblowers and the messengers who are exposing the fraud, right? This is what they do. They want to shut down the people who are delivering the message, not change their behavior. This is the front page of the Texas Austin Statesman. The founder of Acorn, Wade Rathke. Now, Acorn has dissolved, but there are other groups like Organizing for America and Battleground Texas. Wade Rathke wrote to the Austin Statesman that we put out instructions and guides on how to identify possible O'Keefe acolytes. We set up an early warning system in our offices for suspicious characters or questions that seemed inappropriate. And we did office-by-office training sessions on how to handle O'Keefers. They have kept 10,000 people from saying or doing anything that might be caught on camera, instead of actually changing their behavior. So we took this model of citizen journalism and took it to Senate races. Just recently, in 2014, we went to North Carolina. And as you can see, when we release a story, now the media is suddenly interested. Some have told me that, James, it makes for good ratings. And they show up to our press conference. This is a press conference we held in Raleigh, North Carolina, where we took the Eric Holder ballot sting and put it on steroids. I went around to 20 different poll locations, and forgive my terrible North Carolina accent, and I just said, hey, I'm John Doe, or I didn't say I was John Doe. I said, do you have a John Doe? Do you have a Mark Smith? Do you have a James Adams? And they just handed me these ballots, and I got it all on camera.
Sign this and then I can vote?
Yep.
I sign this there, then I can go vote, go get a ballot to vote, right?
Yes, you vote today.
Wow. So if I sign this, then I can go vote, right?
Yes.
This is the correct address.
Now all I got to do is sign this and then I can go vote, right?
Yes, you can.
So all I need to do is sign this and I can vote.
Well, you actually fill it out.
So if that's all correct, then you sign right there.
So if I just sign this, then I can vote, right?
You're gonna take that, and you're in that line, and they'll give you your ballot.
Oh, perfect. All right.
There you go.
Okay, so once I fill this out and sign this, I can go vote?
Yes.
And then it finally happened. Reason overcame the rules. Even though it is not required, these election officials wanted to see ID. They wanted to protect the system, and they had to break the rules to do it.
Last name is first name is Daniel.
Your address?
It's the address is 603 Drive.
Show some type of ID, driver's license.
You do need to say driver's license?
Yes.
Okay, let me go to my car and get it. So the one time they asked me for ID is the one time I couldn't commit the fraud. That's a fact. Now, sometimes I'm recognized, so I have to wear makeup. I usually don't do the undercover work anymore. Too busy. I have more become a director. We have dozens of other people who do it. We have a full-time recruitment director. We have a person who deploys them. Project Veritas is growing, and every time I give one of these talks, people come up to me and they say, I want to do what you do. They're not deterred by some of the attacks. They're actually inspired by the fact that we've overcome them. But occasionally, I do go undercover. And in Colorado, I needed to look like a 50-year-old man. So I had a Hollywood makeup artist do my eyes and make me look older. And I did my story, and before I released it, I tweeted out the picture, you know, kind of like a tease. And all of these people, these voting Colorado people, say, aha, I've seen that man. Of course, they didn't see me, but they just think that they are because they're paranoid. I've seen him. He came into my office and tried to run a sting. So Mother Jones magazine runs a hit piece. O'Keefe tried to bait us into approving voter fraud, and that got tweeted thousands of times. But then we released the actual story. And it was a story that was remarkable. This young woman from Greenpeace, who was working with Senator Udall, who is running for a Democratic Senate candidate in Colorado, tells us not only should we commit fraud, but we should go dumpster diving into the dumpsters where black people live because, to quote her, they don't care about voting, and there's lots of discarded mail-in ballots. This is what she says.
I got a bunch of buddies of mine who are in fraternities. The mail-in ballots coming.
A new video is reinforcing old fears that Colorado's all-mail ballot election is ripe for voter fraud. Conservative activist James O'Keefe, whose undercover stings target Democrats, is out with a video today that appears to show liberal activists in Colorado endorsing voter fraud.
And we think they're probably going to, they're all registered, but they've all moved out of state.
Oh, yeah?
House. So they're all going to get their ballots sent to...
And so just vote for them with those ballots?
Yes, absolutely.
Oh, wow. I mean, it's putting the votes to good use. So really, truly, yeah, that's awesome.
The Greenpeace activist on the tape goes on to suggest that discarded ballots could be collected from what she called Ghetto Aurora, saying...
She was fired immediately. But there's something to this, you know, in flipping it on its side, it's making it about racism and sexism and exploitation of children, not about fraud. I mean, it is about fraud, but it's also about something more sinister. She thinks that black people and Hispanics don't care enough to vote, so we should take their ballots.
African Americans and Mexicans tend to throw out their ballots.
If they're not eligible to vote, and all these people are throwing out ballots, let's use those ballots to vote.
Yes.
So that we can get as many votes as possible.
Definitely.
We don't want to just discard the ballots. They cheat and lie and steal all the time. They do.
I mean, that's not even lying or stealing. If someone throws out a ballot, if you want to fill it out, you should do it.
There you have it. Where's John Fund? Is he in the audience? Yeah, he wrote here. This is his story, and she was fired, and he wrote about it, and it was trending on Facebook. The combination of the media, the Mother Jones magazine attacking me, and just the sheer, I guess, entertainment shock value of the video. We were trending that day. I guess Honey Boo Boo Lover and Kim Kardashian were also trending. But, you know, our stories, they go mainstream. They might not be on CBS Evening News, but they're everywhere else. And that's the important thing. And we could never have done this, 15 years ago. So Facebook, to continue with this particular story in Colorado, so what happens next? Well, this is really unbelievable. Facebook sees the trending story, and 15 minutes later, my page is shut down. Oh my God, are you for real? You're shutting down my page because I'm trending and you don't want people to see the story? So I have a reporter friend of mine send an email to Facebook corporate in California and say, are you targeting James O'Keefe? Are you targeting him like the IRS targets Tea Party people? 90 seconds later, my page came back up. It really is like a John Grisham novel. I mean, you've got Richard Head, you've got Facebook corporate. Now, some things don't require, 10-minute videos. Sometimes a picture is worth not 1,000 words, it's worth an infinite number of words. Sometimes a video taken on an iPhone camera can make all the difference in the world. Now, this is me crossing the Rio Grande River dressed like the world's most notorious terrorist. And there was no Border Patrol agents anywhere. And when I did this, it was the Rio Grande, I thought it was like the Mississippi, but in West Texas, it's actually a muddy, narrow sliver of like a drainage ditch. And you could just walk, to one side and walk to the other side, and there were no Border Patrol. In fact, at one point, we're walking through the desert, a few miles south of Interstate 10, and we were walking through this desert, and I see in the distance a federal Border Patrol truck, and I'm waving at him, come find me. And he just drove as fast as he could in the other direction.
He's back! Not Bin Laden, James O'Keefe.
This video, it's from the conservative watchdog group Project Veritas.
Waiting across the Rio Grande to show how easy it is to evade border security.
A recent trip by investigative reporter James O'Keefe was documented and played at the local grassroots meeting.
This video has caught a lot of attention online.
Roll some video of filmmaker James O'Keefe donning an Osama bin Laden mask and crossing the Rio Grande.
So, the funny thing is, the biggest criticism of this video was I was wearing tennis sneakers while I did this. That was the criticism, not the fact. But it's about our borders, whether you think immigration is a good thing or a bad thing, or it doesn't matter. The politicians are lying to you. I've been there. I don't know how many journalists have actually been to 60 miles southeast of El Paso. There's actually an iron footbridge you can traipse across. That way you don't have to get your feet wet. Not only did we cross the Rio Grande River, we also crossed Lake Erie in a boat dressed like ISIS.
Asked in this situation.
It is possible that a small boat can come into the United States undetected.
The Coast Guard says they are looking into this matter.
That's me on the Zodiac raft right there, crossing Lake Erie from Canada into the United States. But our borders are secure. Now, this might be all fun and games to some people, but it wasn't fun and games to Congress. The Department of Homeland Security Undersecretary was grilled about how Osama bin Laden, a guy dressed like him, could walk across the border.
Well, it's interesting because an American reporter named James O'Keefe, dressed as Osama bin Laden, walked across the border of the Rio Grande River undetected. Did something like that concern you?
Actually, sir, he was not undetected. He was known to the border security agencies who saw him.
Then why didn't they stop him when he came across?
Sir, I can't answer that question.
No, you can't answer it because they weren't.
So he can't answer that question. That's been redacted. Interesting anecdote. This week I was coming back, actually in November, twice. I was coming back in the United States in JFK Airport in New York, going through customs. And they look at my passport and they put a big X. This is after this story came out. I'm flying back in the United States a few months later. They put a big X over my document and say, what's your name? I said, James O'Keefe. Yeah, you're going to have to come over here. And they bring me into a room. They dump all my bags on the floor. They detain me for over an hour. I miss my next flight. And they're just interrogating me. This has happened every time I fly or I go through customs. I get detained by the DHS. And it's probably because I embarrassed them severely. And recently I was coming in through customs this week through JFK. And not only do they dump all my stuff, they say, let me see your phone. I say, here you go. Is it, what's your password to your phone? They actually asked to get into my iPhone. And now many people get angry at me and say, why did you give them their password? Well, first of all, I had a speech to give the next day. I had places to go. I would have missed my flight. They probably would have arrested me. And we're talking to lawyers because what I'd love to do is go back through customs, film the whole thing, refuse the consent search, have them arrest me, and release the video. But I don't know what my rights are. And so we did a FOIA request with Judicial Watch. We got the documentation. They put a black marker through everything about the reasons why I was stopped, about what the suspicion or probable cause was. So just like the guy says, we cannot give you the reason, a government has redacted all of the reasons why they continue to harass me at the border. And it's real. And they go after journalists, and they would never do that to someone who works for the New York Times. They would never do that to someone who currently works for NBC News. But they feel they can do it to me because I'm not a quote-unquote journalist in their eyes. I'm not a licensed journalist like they are. If you look at our reporting, certainly it's more journalistic than many of the things you see on television. So I wrote a long article on my website, projectveritas.com, about this incident, and you can read more about my encounter with DHS. So, one or two more things to show you. We have decided to take our reporting to the campuses because we think this is just, culture, campuses, Hollywood. These are the types of things that deserve expose. So we decided to attempt to start an ISIS club, first at Cornell University. This guy is either the dumbest guy ever to be a dean in an Ivy League school, or his political correctness, again, has been taken to a dangerous extreme.
Tonight on 18 News. Cornell University is under fire after one of its assistant deans is caught on video apparently saying the school would welcome ISIS to the campus.
Some comments from a dean at Cornell University are getting a lot of attention tonight.
In the video, the assistant dean of students at Cornell University welcomes the idea to bring ISIS to the Ivy League campus.
Maybe we could get like a freedom fighter to come and do like a training camp for students.
Controversy on camera for an Ivy League school.
As many debate how much of a threat ISIS is, one professor at an Ivy League university.
Cornell, where the dean says ISIS is welcome and come on down Hamas. What do you make of that?
Yes. ISIS is going to go to Cornell and chop people's heads off. Yeah.
What are they doing over there at Cornell? It may be so cold their brain is not working
It is cold
properly.
up there.
The president of Cornell University is speaking out about a video shot at.
As you can see, we got covered by 150 TV stations. Now, if you're a political action committee and you want to advocate a message, you have to pay for all that advertising. I don't. I just break news, and everybody talks about this stuff. So not only is this type of journalism important, but it's effective on a return on investment standpoint for your time. Just, am I going to do an advertisement or am I going to do a story and have everyone cover it? So that was pretty shocking. This guy trying to basically bring ISIS freedom fighters to Cornell. But then we go to Florida, and this is even more shocking. This student who has a 4.0 GPA comes to me and says, I'll do this. I don't care if they don't let me graduate. She goes in, and not only do they tell her to start the ISIS club, they tell her that our country's at war with ISIS, so you can send the flashlights over to the ISIS fighters, but you got to change the name of the club so that nobody knows about it.
Many countries are technically in conflict with ISIS. Oh, so you do specifically want to send aid to ISIS?
Well, yeah. So maybe just change the name if I want to have the club. Like, do you have any suggestions, like, is what I could call it?
Yeah, we talked about maybe saying in the Middle East, as opposed
sympathetic students for
in support of the Middle East.
Okay.
As opposed to having the ISIS.
Yeah.
Now, they came after the student. Most of the time, they fire these people. This time, they circled the wagons, and they suspended the young student journalist who did this, but the media impact was all the same.
Controversy at a Florida college this morning. A secretly recorded video is now raising questions about whether Barry University uses your tax dollars to support campus clubs intended to aid members of ISIS.
It's the latest video from Project Veritas, run by conservative filmmaker James O'Keefe. O'Keefe claims a Barry University student wore a hidden camera.
Project Veritas alleged it captured on camera.
Now, they suspended the student, and we had to hire her a law firm. We're trying to get the suspension rescinded. It's an unbelievable drama. The president of Cornell responded, attacked me. I had some Cornell alumni. I can't believe how many people, how big that community is. It's an influential community. Contact me and say, just to let you know, I'm not giving my money to Cornell. I'm giving my money to Project Veritas. So, again, imagine if I did 100 of these. Can you imagine? Can you imagine if I did 100 of these videos? Every single media market in the country talking about professors behaving badly, professors getting fired, teachers getting suspended. And if they do attack the whistleblower, at this point we're like the Death Star, so when they shoot the missile, I just get bigger. In terms of a picture being a video being an infinite number of words, sometimes a picture is an infinite number of words. In this case, recently, we tried to investigate Al Sharpton. Now, Al Sharpton, like others, are Teflon coated. You could get anything, and it doesn't seem to damage these people's reputation. It doesn't seem to outrage people, but this time, it was a little different. We got the daughter of Eric Garner. Eric Garner was the guy who got choke-held by the NYPD. And we ran into her daughter at a protest. And she told us that Al Sharpton exploited her and exploited her family for his own financial gain. It was just this one little snippet of video, this one moment where she goes, looks up at the camera and says, this guy's all about the money, is what she does with her fingers. And that moment made the front page of the New York Post.
So you think Al Sharpton is kind of like a crook in a sense? Like you think he's like...
And there it was, Al about the money. This is an African-American woman, daughter of one of these individuals who is part of this Ferguson national conversation. She's the one saying it, not me. And now, funny thing happened, magically, about 12 hours after this expose came out, we cracked into every New York media television station with this story. Magically, a foundation was started in Erica Garner's name in support of Al Sharpton with a $100,000 budget. I imagine some checks were written, some money was passed behind the scenes, but the damage was done.
News for New York at 5:30 starts now. In New York, Reverend Al Sharpton often seen standing with family members of those killed by police officers in controversial circumstances. Tonight, there are questions about how some of those relatives view motives. Good evening, everyone. I'm David Usher.
And I'm Sheba Russell. An undercover video.
Controversy has the Reverend Al Sharpton on the defensive tonight. Secretly shot video showing the daughter of the late Eric Garner criticizing Sharpton's motives.
A video from the nonprofit investigative journalism site called Project Veritas raises questions about whether Sharpton personally profited from championing the Garner tragedy.
The National Action Network in Harlem, they've faced front page headlines before, but none quite like this. Al about the money.
The paper of record, the New York Post, the cover today. Okay? Al about the money.
Now, this video was secretly recorded by...
Now, we've had some critics in New York, where our office is located in Westchester, New York.
James O'Keefe is definitely...
This is Chris Cuomo, the brother of Andrew Cuomo. Andrew Cuomo audited me in New York State, where our office is. Now, we had some unlikely defenders, because I never thought he would defend the story, but in this case, he did.
Is someone who's identified with the right, but Eric Garner's daughter isn't, and she's the one who said that Al is all about the money.
She was caught on tape not knowing she was being videotaped, so she wouldn't have said that.
Sometimes that's when you're the most honest.
Well, there you go.
So sometimes that's when you're the most honest. Sometimes that's when you're the most honest. You know, politicians are not going to be honest with you when they're standing in front of a microphone. Government's not going to be honest with you. Can you imagine if we had Lois Lerner on tape saying the things that we know she said? Do you think there'd be forget the congressional hearings. The people would be so outraged. So our job is to inform the citizens by showing them the truth. And when they see the truth, they just intuitively know who to vote for, what to believe, and all that. We just need to show them the truth, inspire them. That's the mission of Project Veritas. That's what I'm committed to do. There's lots more to come. I can't tell you what it is. I just can't. But stay tuned. We're growing. Our staff is growing. Our recruits are growing. We're welcome to have these courageous people who are willing to put themselves on the line for the sake of the truth, and thank you so much for having me.